In this video, we are going to film an entire commercial, quite possibly the most complex commercial we've ever worked on. We're going to show you behind the scenes on how we did it. We're going to then show you the finished product, and then I'm going to take you into Premiere and show you some little tips and tricks. Let's check it out. So guys, we have been doing this sponsored series for a while now where a few different camera manufacturers and lighting manufacturers are sponsoring videos where we do tutorial videos 100% for free for you guys on YouTube, and we just use their products in the video. And the next one that we had to do was a commercial of some kind. And Fujifilm wanted us to film the commercial using the Fujifilm GFX 100 and the Fujifilm X-T3. And
they gave us a bunch of lenses, so we had everything at our disposal there.
Yeah, and basically they just said, make any commercial you want using these products. We could have done something simple. We could have just done a 30-second commercial. That's all we had to do for this video.
But we picked any restaurant,
right.
Any entrepreneur here, and done a short ad for their business.
That would have been the easy thing to do, but instead we decided to do a commercial for our entire neighborhood. There is a little bit of competition for this video. 10 or 15 years ago, the guy who founded Palmas commissioned a video.
What is true luxury? It's to live listening to the melody of the sea, to hear nature's song, the beautiful symphony of sounds that reminds us that we are in this world to enjoy it, to live in peaceful harmony.
What is luxury?
What is true luxury? In Puerto Rico, it's a place called Palmas del Mar.
So needless to say, Palmas Del Mar was in dire need of an update for their promotion.
Absolutely. And although this neighborhood does have, incredibly expensive homes and stuff, and there's a lot of houses and condos here that are under $200,000, we wanted this to be a much more down-to-earth video. Right. We don't want to use the word luxury once. We can show luxury. We also don't want it to feel like people are dressed up in gowns.
And it's not this exclusive neighborhood where you wouldn't be invited. I mean, everybody here is the most down-to-earth people maybe I've ever met.
Right, yeah, I completely agree.
It's super inviting, and so that was a really important element of, updating this commercial.
All right, so we're doing the first interview with Ricardo. This is probably the most important thing we're going to do because whatever Ricardo says is going to dictate the other shots that we have to get for this video. The first thing that we did was we picked the perfect spot, and we're at a buddy's house right now. As you can see, we're on the ocean. It was really important to us that we showed the ocean and the palm trees, that beautiful Caribbean lifestyle, while at the same time still showing that we were at a house. And I think this is perfect because we're gonna be able to see a little bit of the pool, and I love this square wall that we have here. It's just gonna make it really clear that we are at someone's house. Now, we have a bunch of gear going on. I'm gonna go through it one by one really quick. Let's first start with audio. We're gonna be running 2 different microphones, and they're gonna be redundant, and we're gonna choose whatever sounds best when we get into post. Usually a shotgun mic will sound best if you can get it close enough to your subject. We've got the brand new Rode NTG5. This actually just showed up at my door like a day or 2 ago. And this mic is pretty cool because it's a shotgun mic that comes with all of the accessories that you might need. I love the fact that it has this swivel handle. You could hold it in your hand if you wanted to. It's also got the shock mount, and we have the dead cat attached to this. That's gonna help with wind. For our second audio source, we've got a Sennheiser G4 unit here. Ricardo's gonna be wearing this as well. Again, this is just backup, and we're going to be running this directly into the Fujifilm GFX 100. I've been running tests, and I'm getting really clean audio out of that camera, so this is going to be a great option just in case our shotgun mic picks up a little bit too much ambient noise. As you can see, I'm also wearing a lav mic. We're kind of running out of microphones here. So I've got the Rode, I think it's the Rode Go. Now let's talk about how we are capturing audio from the shotgun microphone. If you come over here and look under the camera, this is also brand new tech that I just got the other day. This is the Zoom F6 recorder. And what's interesting about this recorder is it claims to have something like 2 different preamps that are recording at 2 different volume levels. And the idea is that you never have to set the gain in the microphone. It's impossible to clip, and it's impossible to be too quiet. So basically you don't have to do anything in terms of setting the microphone. You simply set your headphone output, and you're supposed to get clean audio. If it starts clipping, you can actually recover it, almost like a raw image if you're accustomed to photography. So this is the first time we're using this unit. I'm really excited to hear what it sounds like. In terms of cameras, we've got two different cameras here. This is the Fujifilm X-T3. This is going to be our B camera. We have a 16 to 55 2.8 lens attached to this. This is the Fujifilm GFX 100. As I understand it, this is the very first medium format camera ever to be able to shoot 4K video. And we did some tests the other night in the studio with this camera, and if you choose the right color profile, it looks beautiful. We're shooting with the 32 to 64 millimeter f4 lens. I'm probably going to be shooting in between 50 to 64 millimeters. That's approximately 50 millimeters on a full frame 35 millimeter camera. Under that, we have the Arc 2. If you guys don't know what this is made by Rhino Camera Gear. This is one of the coolest pieces of gear I have ever used. So basically, you can set keyframes, and then what I can do is I can move over and I can create these moves that this will do once or again and again and again. And the idea here is that we're gonna have Ricardo sitting in the chair, and we're gonna have some slight movement going on with this camera, and it's gonna create beautiful parallax. We're gonna be able to see the trees and the ocean kind of just very slowly moving behind him. I hope it raises our production value. Because we're setting up with this wall right here, I think all of our natural light is gonna be blocked, and so we're going to need some sort of light to fill in what the sky would naturally be doing. This is the Felix Matrix 2 RGB. We love this light because it can create almost any color in the spectrum. Today, we're probably not gonna be choosing a crazy color, but we are going to be trying to match the color of this light to the sunset, and the sun is going to be setting from this direction, so we're setting up this light directly where the sunset would be. The second sync, 3, 2, 1.
All right, Ricardo, let's get some audio out of you.
Hello, 1, 2.
Where are you from?
I am from Humacao, Puerto Rico.
So I guess the first thing we should talk about is, for this entire year, we've been shooting on the GFX 100. This has been one of the cameras that Fuji has sent us. I think we got this halfway through the year. Before that, we were shooting on the X-T3 and some of the other Fujifilm, mirrorless cameras. What was it like shooting on a camera this big? Because this is the size of a camera we're usually used to shooting on.
Stills.
Stills. But we have never used something this big for video.
I was nervous about shooting this on just any other camera that I'm unfamiliar with. I think we love the Panasonic GH5. I feel like the Panasonic GH5 is made as a video camera that can shoot stills, and both of these cameras are still cameras that can also shoot video.
Right.
And so I was nervous that the image quality wasn't going to be as good or good enough, especially for all of the work that we plan to put into this video. The image quality out of these cameras is shockingly good. I think many of the color profiles that we were testing at the beginning were extremely contrasty, but we ended up choosing one color profile that looked fantastic, almost film-like.
It's called their cinema profile. It's the Eterna.
Okay. Once I got to that color profile and then compared it to our GH5, there's definitely aspects of these cameras that I prefer to the GH5, but the colors look more digital in the Panasonic and more film-like in the Fujifilm. So basically, all that being said, I was very impressed with the way these cameras performed, especially when they were stabilized properly. Now, during that Ricardo interview, I was asking the questions, and so I was kind of just focused on Ricardo, and I was asking you to kind of man the cameras and everything. And the problem that we were running into was that the light was changing super fast.
We chose to film him at dusk, at sunset.
Yeah, which was probably a bad decision. But not only were we losing light, we were also getting very significant color shifts as well. And so at times, we probably let too much time go by, but we did change the light output. We lowered our key light. We changed the color on our key light a little bit to try to balance things out. And when I looked at the footage when we got back into post, I was nervous because I was like, man, it's really significantly different over the course of this 30-minute interview. But the footage graded really well. It actually gave me a lot more latitude than I thought. And I have figured out a way to edit the background and the subject independently from each other color-wise. I'll show you guys how I did that when we get into the post section, but that was super helpful.
It's one of those situations, as I was manning all of the cameras, you can't just put everything in auto ISO and let the camera choose your settings, you know, because you have the background, you have him, you have the light that you're using to illuminate him, you have some of the ambient light that's falling on the scene that's right behind him, you know, the patio and everything. And so it was definitely like a juggling act, and I could see we're having a larger team that are just manning each camera and making those changes manually, offset in a way that, you know, if I cut to this camera, it's not changing, but then maybe like 30 seconds later, you get the other camera.
Or you cut when the interviewer is asking the question, and that's when you don't really need to stop the camera, but you just flip the white balance a little bit or change it a third of a stop or whatever.
Right. But it was extremely helpful having the RGB lights, because we could change the color.
Absolutely.
If we were stuck and having to put gels in front of lights, it would have slowed everything up, and the color would have been drastically different.
See, I mean, I can remember just a few years ago, before the RGB lights even existed, and it would, like, the idea that a light bulb could change its color was impossible to us. Like, we never thought that was possible, so we just always assumed, like, well, this is what we have to work with.
Yeah.
This light's going to be super orange compared to the natural light. Like, that's just what we have to work with.
Or they're blue, and we've warmed up the scene, but it's, you know.
Yeah, and now it's like, no, we don't have to do that.
center.
We can just turn this knob, and then it's perfect. Again, it's just, you guys have no excuse. You could literally be filming movies on your own now, and you have better technology than Hollywood had a decade ago. It's crazy. At this point, we had a blueprint of, like, what should this video look like? What does Ricardo talk about? And then we need B-roll of all the stuff that he's going to talk about. And then we just went crazy. And we went all over the neighborhood filming as much beautiful stuff as we could. Some of the footage we had already shot. For instance, we had already shot some time lapses off of our porch.
Some drone footage. You know, there's been things that we've just accumulated over the last year.
Right. But we definitely had to go out and shoot way more.
Right.
I know one of the things we shot was the girl riding the electric hydrofoil. And while she was doing that, I was getting wider shots that kind of showed off the marina and her doing that. So it could kind of be used to show the location and show that, hey, there's cool water sports going on here as well. We were shooting kiteboarding footage.
Yep.
At this moment, I'm the only kiteboarder in Palmas who consistently kiteboards. We have a few people learning. So we kind of had to figure out what we wanted to do there. So I was getting Katie, who was down on the beach with me, to call you and let you know when I was going out. And then you were going on the tops of mountains. And then what were you doing to get these telephoto shots?
I was actually shooting a lot of that on the X-T3, and you can see here, if you want to hold this camera, I was using their 50 to 140 telephoto lens, but they also have this 1.4x teleconverter. And this would allow me to get these crazy shots where, I mean, I was a mile away, you know, and I could just zoom into the marina and into the bay, and there you were. And then as you got closer, it would get bigger. And I could just go to some of my favorite vantage points that I've never really shot anything from, because they're not like beautiful landscape shots, but for video, they look pretty incredible. And so I could just mount this on a tripod, shoot through that. I was trying to shoot some stuff on our porch, and I would mount this camera to that so that I could get really smooth tilting shots and panning shots. In many cases, I actually found it easier just to do that digitally, you know, just to like let the camera sit there, get the stable shot. And then also, anytime you were kiteboarding, that meant the winds were howling, you know. And so in many cases, we couldn't fly the drone. And mounting a camera like this, even on our other tripods, it was still shaking enough to where you needed that beefier tripod, just because the wind's out here. I mean, what do you kite in? It's
like 20 knots.
20 knots, which is, it's a good gust. And then I was up on these high vantage points where I was really feeling that as well.
Now, these cameras also have optical stabilization. Were you finding that that worked well on a tripod, or do you cut that off when you're on the tripod?
For the telephoto shots, I actually left it on. And maybe that was a mistake, but I could see through the screen in the viewfinder. Everything was nice and stable.
We had turned off the optical stabilizer on the GFX 100 when we were putting it on the Rhino Arc 2, because we knew it was going to be stable and then jump and then be stable and then jump. And then you let somebody touch this camera. They were playing with it, and they turned it back on. And we didn't know. So when we did the interview with AJ and Abby at their back porch, I couldn't tell that that sensor was jumping on the small screen on the back, right? And when I got back to the computer, you know, I'm looking, I'm like, oh, this footage looks awesome. And then all of a sudden I see these little jumps and I'm like, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
And then I go into the camera and realize that it's on, and I call you and I'm like, why would you turn that back on? Pat Black, it was you. If you guys know who Pat Black is, it's always his fault. Luckily, we were able to add warp stabilizer in post. And at the end of this video, I'm going to take you guys into Premiere and show you some editing tips and tricks and stuff that I used to edit this entire video. But it saved that footage, thankfully, because I was about to have to not use that angle because that little jerk was wrecking it.
And I think it just goes to show, you know, a lot of this equipment, we use it enough to where we know the basic settings. But if you're doing this full time, like, you need to know every single setting and you need to go through and confirm everything. Or in a lot of these cameras, you would just make a custom setting that you turn on and go to so that when you're shooting video, it's always this setting, you know.
We used the NTG5, this is Rode's new shotgun microphone, for our first interview with Ricardo. And it sounds amazing. I think it's the best sounding audio we have ever recorded.
Yeah.
In Palmas, we have such natural beauty. And one of the things that a lot of people talk about and clients are just mesmerized of our sunrise in the morning.
So when I got back and heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, this microphone's amazing. Yeah, we got to use it on everything. So the next interview we did was with AJ and Abby. And now we're in a situation where it's like, we need to record two people talking, so the mic has to be further away.
Yeah.
So we still had lav mics. Lav mics are always the backup.
These are the Sennheiser G3s.
This was the backup, and when I heard AJ and Abby, I still preferred the way the NTG5 sounded.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as crisp and clear. You can hear this bass in Ricardo's voice that you lose in AJ and Abby's voice just because it's like a foot or two further away.
Virgin Islands within 58 nautical miles. It's just heaven.
The community has far outweighed really anywhere we've ever lived. In the 5 months that we've been here, we've already built this community or joined this community of friends that we've never had anywhere else.
So all of the audio that you're hearing in the final edit is from the shotgun mic or from the two lavs on them?
For those two interviews, it's the shotgun.
Okay.
But the next two interviews, it's lav mics. And I don't know if that was the right decision, but here's why we made this decision. When we shot Lana and Francis out on the beach, I thought we might be facing the beach, and so the shotgun mic would be facing the crashing waves and it would pick all that up. But the other thing was I thought it's going to be so loud at the beach, and we have to keep that mic so far away to capture two people talking that it's just not going to be the right decision. So we went with lav mics for them.
It's so easy to load up the kids in the golf cart and go down the street to the beach or the gazillions of pools that we go to. And just there's so many activities and things that we end up doing that feel so much easier than it did in the US.
I think it works. I don't think it sounds bad. When we went to the next interview at JLD and Kate's house, I didn't bring the shotgun mic again. I wanted specifically to get an interior house shot. And so I thought I didn't want to pick up the echo from the reverb and everybody's concrete homes here. So I went with lav mics again. And I would say their interview probably has the worst audio of all four.
When we came into Palmas Del Mar, we were specifically searching for our dream home. We found it because it fit all the qualities that we wanted.
Just because of the reverb in their home being picked up by any mic, really.
Yeah, and I mean, the mics are so close to their mouths, but even still, you can hear that reverb. And it bums me out just because Ricardo's interview sounds so good.
Yeah.
All right, we're here at the next interview. We've already set everything up. Let me show you what we've done here. First of all, in terms of a composition, we love the look of this wall back here and these two lamps. We also really liked the depth, showing this different room in the back. This is the kitchen, but instead of showing that they're sitting in front of the kitchen, it just feels like, okay, there's another room back there. This sofa was over here, which makes a lot more sense if you're actually living in the house. But we thought this sofa looked really nice compared to these other chairs that we had. So we actually slid this sofa around, and we're gonna be zooming in right here, and we're gonna put JLD and Kate right here. In terms of lighting, we were hoping to be able to do this with natural light. And then of course, once we got in here, set up the shot, we realized that we did need the light. So up here we have the Felix RGB light. This is giving us a little bit of punch, and we're working together with the natural light that we have from these windows here. And it was really nice being able to fine tune the color temperature because we're getting really blue light through these windows. I think there's some sort of tint on them that's making the light blue. So I had to make this really blue as well to even it out. So it would have been very difficult, if not impossible, if we didn't have a color shiftable light. Our main camera here is the Fujifilm GFX 100. This has been working really well for this video. We've got it on the Rhino Slider Arc II. What is holding this up is the Manfrotto 536 M Pro tripod. We actually have this fluid head permanently mounted to this tripod, but because this tripod and head are so beefy, it's actually possible to mount this entire slider directly to the head and just kind of lock the head down. And we're getting really nice, smooth shots moving side to side here. I was very excited about our A camera shot.
We completely crafted that shot so that it would be as beautiful as possible.
And we had to completely throw our A camera shot out because of partly my fault and partly your fault. I'm gonna blame you. I'm gonna blame you too.
How does this come on me?
So we basically set up this incredible shot where you can see depth behind them and you can see all these shelves behind them and everything. We got the camera moving. And right before we start filming, I decide, you know what, this camera's a little wide, I'm gonna push it in a little bit. Really exaggerate that shallow depth of field. And when I refocus, I don't know if I misfocus, I don't know if the camera misses focus. I was controlling the camera, I misfocus, and it focuses on the front of JLD's knee. Now, I was in charge of interviewing the people, I was in charge of monitoring audio. I could not walk around and check out the cameras. So what do I say? I say, Patrick, man these cameras for me. So it was your job to make sure that our A and B cameras were going well. Patrick, can you just keep an eye on our A camera here and make sure that the movement I've made is right on that?
In thinking of not who's taking the blame on this, but how would this have done, how would you have tackled this more professionally? Maybe the correct solution would be every 5 or 10 minutes to refocus that camera. We do that quite a bit, especially with a camera that's moving like that. So what happened? You had to rely on the camera that I set up.
So the secondary camera here is the Fujifilm X-T3, and we have the 50 to 140 millimeter lens. We're shooting at f2.8. We're getting a little bit of shallow depth of field, and I really like shooting interviews with a B-roll camera that's really off axis. I think it looks nice. It's something different to cut to, and it should work well with this interview. Luckily, we happen to have another GH5 rolling as kind of just like a backup behind the scenes camera. We always have extra cameras rolling when we're filming these behind the scenes stuff. So the 2 shot where they're both in focus is actually shot with the GH5, and I hate that shot. Maybe the average person doesn't even think about it, but to me, I'm like, who the hell would set somebody up on a couch with a microwave behind them? Like, it doesn't even make any sense. It's crazy. It looks so ugly. And so it really bothers me. Probably it bothers me just because I know how good the A-roll shot did look and how good it was supposed to look and how much work we did to make it look so good. And then we have to use this crap shot that like was never supposed to be seen by anyone.
That's probably one of the biggest mistakes we've made in the last, as far as I can remember. Like, I don't remember a mess up as big as that.
So those were the 4 interviews we did. At that point, it was just about getting B-roll, 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 B-roll. And so we were just going around the neighborhood, morning, noon, night, all the time, trying to get a variety of locations, lighting conditions, people.
You shot a lot of stuff out of your car, which was kind of interesting.
I did.
And so just shooting, homes out of a car looks a little suspicious.
Yeah, so it was interesting. These new cameras with the image stabilization, either in the lens or in the sensor or whatever, they're good enough that you can kind of just hand hold it, especially if you're shooting slow-mo. A lot of the footage that we shot in slow-mo, we shot with the X-T3 because it shoots 4K
60 frames.
And so any jitters that might be there are smoothed out when you slow down the footage. But yeah, I drove around the neighborhood and I just held the camera out the window and just, luckily I have an electric car that's super smooth and quiet, you know, and I could just move. And I was getting these panning shots that looked like we were on the Rhino slider.
Yeah.
But in reality, I'm just shooting out of my car.
Then you also have some nice
around.
shots that open up the whole video where you're shooting through, you know, the brush.
Yeah.
And you have the reveal shots of the community and everything, and those look really nice. Those are all handheld. But I also used a lot of gimbal shots. There was a day where I just went out with all the kids in the neighborhood, you know, or some of the kids in the neighborhood. And, you know, I'm getting gimbal shots where I'm walking and they're running into the forest, and I take them out to the beach. There was a lot of fun shots I did on the beach that I saw didn't make the cut. You know, we had the Nerf guns and stuff, but it's just fun to be able to use all of these tools to create the most complex and diverse video, you know, from a visual standpoint.
All right, so I think you guys have seen lots of little clips and we've talked a lot. Let's actually play the finished commercial. You can see if you like it.
In Palmas, we have such natural beauty.
The community has far outweighed really anywhere we've ever lived.
I would say Palmas is unique because it's a community first. There's beautiful resorts in Puerto Rico, which have a center hotel, the amenities of the hotel, and then housing around it. I'd say Palmas is the other approach. It is a community first, where you have restaurants, you have housing, you have a bank, you have a market. So you have about 1,400 families living here permanently, and 3,400 homes.
When we first got to Puerto Rico, we actually moved to the west side of the islands because we thought that was probably where we were going to end up based on our research. But after a couple months, we realized that wasn't the perfect place for us. So we kind of explored the different communities around Puerto Rico. But when we drove into Palmas Del Mar, we looked at each other and said, this is home.
The beauty of Palmas is that it's got something for everybody. The beach club, there's golf, there's tennis. You can enjoy your boat in the yacht club. There is over 10 miles of trails. You have an equestrian center if you want to keep your private horse.
So Francis and I have been talking about living somewhere outside of California for a long time. As we got to know the people and just the environment here, we just found it to be such a beautiful blend of the local Puerto Rican culture, and you have people from all over the world and certainly all over the United States here.
It's been so much fun just being able to meet people from all over, go out to dinner with them, hike.
Easy to load up the kids in the golf cart and go down the street to the beach, or the gazillions of pools that we go to, and just there's so many activities and things that we end up doing that feel so much easier than it did in the US.
For people that have kids and are considering Puerto Rico, I say come down here for a week, bring the family, get an Airbnb, and just test the place out, because you'll be so surprised with the quality of Palmas Academy, with all the activities for kids.
Disneyland.
The real estate available in Palmas is so diverse. Some people want a condo, they want to pay a condo fee and have somebody else maintain it, and they just live the unit, enjoy the view and their lifestyle. Other people are looking for more space. and those prefer single-family homes.
Yeah,
Yes.
this place is around 4,000 square feet, and we were looking at places in Laguna Beach before we decided to move here that were going to be about 1,000 square feet for the same cost.
When we came into Palmas Del Mar, we were specifically searching for our dream home. We found it because it fit all the qualities that we wanted.
That you can come here, you can make friends easy, and you feel at home. You feel welcome.
Now we meet so many people. Every time we go to a new event or a new party, it's like we're meeting somebody new who has just moved down here in the last 8 weeks.
Well, actually, our social calendar here is much busier.
Yeah, it's cool because the people that we've met, they all came here for a reason, and they're risk takers, they're adventurers, and they're just our people, so we've really found our tribe, I guess.
Where else can you get Caribbean Ocean, warm water, Virgin Islands within 58 nautical miles? It's just heaven.
I wanted to tell the story of Palmas with what everyone said in the interviews, while at the same time showing beautiful footage and having, you know, everything hit on those crescendos and beats and everything, and hopefully you think that I accomplished that goal. And that actually leads to the third and final sponsor, which is MusicBed. All of the music from this video is from MusicBed, and MusicBed is different from a lot of other stock music websites because instead of purchasing each song individually, you simply pay a monthly fee. If you're just a personal YouTuber, it's just $9 a month. If you are a wedding photographer or videographer, it's just $59 a month, which is still less than the price of a song on most other websites. And then if you're a business like us, $89 a month. Head over to musicbed.com, check out the music, you can listen to it, figure out if something works for your project, and then if you're interested, pay the monthly fee, you're gonna save a lot of money. Here in this Palmas sequence, you can see this is the entire project here, and what's kind of difficult about showing you guys this project is that I normally work on dual screens, but of course I can't screen record dual screens. And so I usually have my timeline on a separate screen, and that way I can have my preview window really large. And this is the reason why. You can see how many different levels of audio and video tracks I have here. And if I had to edit like this with this little bitty small preview window, things would be really difficult. So if you guys don't have dual monitors already, get an extra monitor. Even if you work on a laptop, get another monitor. You can use both the laptop monitor and the one that you bought. I think that's probably the biggest upgrade you can make when it comes to productivity. 2 monitors is key. But I've smashed everything into one monitor just so I can show you guys a few tips. Obviously, I'm not gonna go through this entire project. I'm not going to teach you how to edit a video. We could be here for days. But what I will show you is just a few things that I kind of learned along the way or really helped me edit this video. Okay, so here's an interesting clip. Do you guys notice anything strange going on in this clip? I don't think the average person would notice anything strange. They just go, that's a beautiful shot. But if you know anything about weather, it would be really weird to have clouds moving that quickly in real life, while at the same time having all of the grass in the foreground moving so slowly. Watch it again. Basically what we've done here is we have a time lapse going on the top of the frame while we have slow-mo going on the bottom of the frame. So let me show you how we did that. What I have here is a nested sequence, and if I double click on it, you'll notice that we have 2 different clips stacked on top of each other. This clip here, you can see, is sped up to 9,989% speed, so it's going really fast. And then the one on the bottom here is slow motion. So what I've done is I've hit Shift-E to enable and disable. You can also do that by right-clicking and going to enable or disable. So if I watch this clip down below, you'll notice the clouds aren't moving at all. I actually shot this in 60 frames per second I think we're playing it back at 23.976 frames per second, so it's slow-mo, but of course we don't have the clouds moving at all. And then if I disable this bottom one and enable the top one, you'll notice this strange cut mark here. And what I've done is I've created a mask in Premiere and told Premiere, hey, I only want you to show this part of this video and let the other video below show through. Let me show you how to do that. All right, so I've deleted the mask and I've also disabled the video that's on the second track below. I'm going to click on this pen tool or free draw Bezier tool, whatever the heck that is. And basically what I want to do is create a path here that only reveals what I want this clip to show. So I'm basically going to highlight the top of this hill and the sky. So I'm just gonna click here and we're just gonna follow the horizon here. I think that water moving very quickly and trees and grass moving really quickly in time lapses looks super cheesy. I hate the way it looks. So as you can see, we've created a mask here, and now when I enable this bottom layer, it's going to look perfect because remember, this is the exact same clip. What I did was I just sat here for maybe 5 minutes, shot a clip at 60 frames per second, and then I just copied it, put one on top of the other, sped up the one on the top, slowed down the one on the bottom, create the mask, and boom, it's ready to go. All right, now if I play this back, you'll notice we have slow motion in the foreground and we have quick motion in the sky. I think that looks super cool. Again, I don't think the average person would really notice, but I think it looks so much better than when the foreground is just going crazy. I think that looks super cheesy. But if you go over to my edit that actually made this commercial, notice the difference. I have it zooming out. It looks like I'm either pulling the camera back or zooming out with the lens. Most of the time with my B-roll, I wanted some sort of movement. So if the camera wasn't moving on its own, I added movements using keyframe. So let me show you how I did that to this clip. As you can see up here in the effects controls, I have created keyframes here. And over here, it's at a scale of 110. And then as I move over, it's gonna go down, 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 all the way to 100. So basically what I've done is I've zoomed in and I say at this point, I want it to be right here, and then at this point, I want it to be right here, and it's going to change over time. You'll notice with the next shot, with this little crab, I've done the opposite. I've pushed in. So let me show you how I'm gonna do that. We'll work on this crab shot. First of all, I'm going to delete the keyframes that I've already made. You can click up here in this kind of dead space right here and hit Control A, and you can see it highlights those keyframes, and I'm going to hit delete. So if we play it back right now, you'll see the crab's walking forward, but the shot isn't moving at all. So if I want to zoom in, maybe I want to start at 105, and you can see it created this little keyframe right here. If for some reason it doesn't create the keyframe, you can just click this little stopwatch button right here, toggle animation. And then I'm going to slide over here. Now, I don't know why Premiere started doing this, but if you slide to the end, it goes to the next clip. That is infuriating, infuriating. I do not know why they make it do that. So now what we have to do is we have to create a keyframe in the middle of this timeline here. So I'm gonna set this to 100, and then I'm gonna drag it to the end. And for some reason, it allows us to do that. So now you can see as the crab is moving forward, it looks like the camera's going back. I think I actually did the opposite where I pushed in before. So all we have to do if we wanna do that is swap these. So I can drag this over here, swap this to this side, swap this over here, and let's watch it now. I think that looks better for that particular shot. Now here's a time-lapse shot of moving water and a boat, and I know I said I hate the look of that. This shot worked for me for whatever reason. Patrick took this time-lapse, and the water looks smooth enough that I think it still looks elegant, and then the bobbing of the boat still looks nice. So I put this shot in here without, changing anything like we did before. And you'll notice with this shot, it looks like we're panning from left to right. I did that in post. This shot is completely stationary, and you can see that we have keyframes up here as well. Once again, I'll show you guys how I do this. I'm just gonna hit Control A to highlight everything and delete. What I'm going to do is zoom in to 110%. That's gonna give us a little room to work here. And then I'm going to slide my frame over. And you see, I don't want to reveal what's beneath it there. I just want it to be right on the edge. And then you can see that it created this keyframe here for my position. I could also create another keyframe for the scale. We're not going to be using scale for this movement, but in case you want to for some shots, it's probably good habit to go ahead and just have position and scale keyframes made for each one of your movements. And then over here, I'm just going to slide to this side. Again, I don't want to reveal what's beside it or beneath it. So maybe over here, and see this white box that's like over there? That looks kind of ugly. I don't want to see that. So maybe that's where I want to end. And then once again, I have to click on this and drag it to the end. If I don't, what's going to happen is in the middle of this shot, it's going to stop right here. And we obviously don't want that. We want movement through the entire shot. So I'm going to push this keyframe all the way to the side. Now, I feel like this movement is a little slow, so maybe I do need to show that white box at the end there. I'm going to click on Go to Next Keyframe, this little triangle here. It's going to click me over, and I'm just going to move over a little bit more. I think we might have to show that white box. And let's watch it again. I think that speed looks much, much better. Now, I think a lot of people overdo this and they make it look really silly by going too quickly. Let me just show you what it looks like if we go too quick. So I'm going to zoom into 130, and then I'm going to go all the way over here on this side, and then we'll go to the other keyframe here, and I'm going to go all the way over to this side. Now let's watch this. I think that is too fast. I think that looks cheesy. It ruins the mood of the shot. So be mindful of that. Don't go too crazy. Now I want to quickly talk about color grading. For this video, I want it to be very vibrant and contrasty, lots of saturation and color. And my interviews, I wanted them to match the B-roll, so I wanted them to be vibrant as well. This interview that we did with Ricardo was really tricky because the sun was changing so rapidly, and I did a lot of different color grades to these shots. I just want to quickly show you what I was doing. If you see here, if I can toggle this on and off, this is a Lumetri color effect here. I'm just going to delete this and I'll try to rebuild it for you guys. I'm going to go into Lumetri color here. Again, I would have this on my second monitor normally. That's why it's just all jumbled up right here. But the first thing that I would do is I would try to go with these basic corrections. And I would try to, make this look a little bit better. To be honest, I feel like this looks really awesome right out of camera. This shot was with the X-T3. I think it looks really good. You could leave it like this and it would be fine. But I just want to make sure that my blacks are black. I might push the shadows just a little bit. Darken that up. Darken that shirt up just a little bit. The background here, I can play with my highlights and just see what's possible. You can see if I go too far with it, it really starts changing his face. I don't want to do that, but at the same time, if I push these highlights, then we lose all that beautiful color in the background. So I just want to play with it a little bit. Something like that probably looks good. Now, instead of touching this saturation slider, I like going into the creative panel here. And I'm going to hit both vibrance and saturation. If I just hit the vibrance, it doesn't seem to be boosting the blues as much as I would want. So I'm adding a little bit of vibrance, and then I'm also adding saturation on top of that to bring in some of those blues in the background. I think that looks a little bit better. And keep in mind, I am only looking at the background right now. I realize Ricardo looks like he's dying of some horrible disease. He's neon orange. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the color from Ricardo's skin. So I am going to go into HSL secondary here, and we can click on the eyedropper and I can start clicking on the tones on his face. And if we click down here, this little checkbox for color gray, you can see it starts showing Ricardo's skin. And so I'm just going to keep clicking on Ricardo's face. I'm clicking the plus dropper, and I'm going to keep adding and adding and adding. And you'll notice the more I add, you see it's like picking up the trees and stuff, but the truth is, like, I don't really care if the trees also lose saturation because they're brown trees. That's not really important to me. I just wanted to make sure that that sky looked really good. I'm going to click on this checkbox again to bring it back to normal, and now I can slide down and I can really start playing with just what I have highlighted, which is Ricardo's skin here. So first thing I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna drop saturation. And you can see that already looks so much better. If I want to, I could add blues to his skin tone just a little bit. I'm just moving this around here. Whatever feels right. If you want to as well, you can change the white balance, you know, just on his skin and of course some of the trees and stuff in the background, and the tint shift as well. And let's go back to the effects controls, and you can see Lumetri color has showed up. Once you move any slider, it's just going to automatically show up in the effects control panel here. And I can toggle this on and off and kind of see what we've done. I don't know how well this is going to come across as a screen recording that's been also uploaded to YouTube, but it's a subtle change that I think fits with this video. I've tried to make everything very vibrant and saturated, and I think we've done that with this shot, even though the background was pretty dull at this time, and I think it looks a lot better. All right, let's look at this shot of AJ and Abby. Remember we mentioned how one of our assistants turned on optical stabilization and the GFX 100 and we didn't know. I thought we had ruined this shot because this camera was jerking around. See if you can see this here. See that move right there? Boom. That drives me crazy. Maybe the average person wouldn't notice that. I see that all day long, and what was a super awesome professional looking shot looks super amateurish the second that thing just bumps over. It drives me crazy. So right before I picked up the phone to scream at him for doing that and ruining our video, I thought, you know what, let me just try to drop a warp stabilizer effect on that. So if you go over to effects and drop warp stabilizer on this. All right, so let's see what this looks like with all of the native warp stabilizer settings. Okay, so surprisingly, it looks perfect with the native settings. I had a problem with these settings on some other clips, so I just want to let you guys know that if you go down here and change subspace warp, sometimes it does crazy stuff where it's moving your footage all over the place, and just change it to position or position scale and rotation. Usually just position is fine. It's for something, you know, that's moving this little. And then I changed this to either 5 or 10%. Let's play this back and see if it still looks just as good. So I can still see a little movement right there. I'm going to bring this up to 10%, and I'm going to render this. So that looks pretty good at right around 10%. Maybe you need to go up to 15%. So that's basically the tip. If you're trying to stabilize something, Warp Stabilizer isn't doing a good job, try to manually go in and mess with some of those settings. You may be able to salvage your clip. Now, at the very end of this video, you can see I fall into the water, and I thought that was a cool ending to the video. And Patrick said, you know, I think it'd be cool to have like Foley sounds in this video, and he knew I wasn't going to go through and add sound effects for every single clip, but he was like, for this final clip, you know, what if you just have a splash sound or something? And then we debated for a long time, like, what type of splash would it be? And he wanted it to be like a kerplunk sound, and I was like, no, it should be a wave sound. So he went online and found all these sound effects for these like kerplunk and bucket sounds and stuff. It sounded really stupid. And then I just went online and got wave sounds. So listen to this wave sound that I have here, and you can hear what I did. I've added a exponential fade to the beginning and end just to kind of have it fade in here. So you might say, well, Lee, that doesn't sound super realistic because that just literally sounds like a wave and you fell in the water. But I've also added a few bubble sounds as well. So listen to this bubble sound. And I know that sounds super cheesy as well, but I added tons of little bubble sounds all down here. And basically when you put it all together with the music, let's listen to it. Hopefully it doesn't sound cheesy at that point. So definitely consider sound effects, whether you record them on location or you find these sound effects online or whatever. I think if you put in just a few minutes of work, I think it can really raise the production value.
I think one of the most exciting things that I would take away from this project is, yes, we are using expensive cameras and some affordable cameras, and we have all the lighting and we have the fancy tripods and everything. But in many cases, a lot of this could be done on a budget. You know, you could have interviews with one camera. They could have all been shot indoors with natural light, kind of like JLD's interview was shot.
Lana's interview was 100% natural light.
And that is a beautiful interview. You could have a GoPro, and you could have a drone, and you could have one of these cameras, your main camera that you shoot stills on, and you could shoot video through that. And I guess you could have a microphone. I mean, a lot of the behind the scenes was shot with the Rode, what is the Rode mic that you had?
It's $200 for that thing.
Sounds great.
I know.
It would be so easy to just, you know, I put that on one camera and that was your microphone because we had so many microphones going. It just excites me as a filmmaker, as a creative, that you could say, you know what, with 3 tools, a GoPro, a camera, and maybe a drone, and a mic, you could, there's really no excuse for not producing great stuff. And this was a passion project. Nobody was paid, everyone donated their time. And you know, if you don't live in a place like Palmas, just find an area in your community, maybe it's a 30-minute drive that's beautiful, and make something with what you have around you. We have something that we're really proud of. I mean, this is probably the best project we've done in all of 2019.
Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as we did. If you're a photographer and you're interested in video, but you don't really know where to begin, check out our intro to video tutorial that we have on fstoppers.com/store. We go through everything we know, including an intro to Premiere.
Well, we created a commercial as well. We did something very similar to this in that tutorial.
That's true.
So if you want to see more little tips and tricks like this, that's a good place to start.
The cool thing about being a photographer is you already know everything you need to know. It's literally just like flicking a switch, hitting record, and then you need to know how to edit video. But I think editing video is way easier than editing photographs. Way easier. So if you're interested, check out that tutorial on fstoppers.com/store. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this as much as we did.